Okay, so everyone here, and we do appreciate that everyone is still on their places and you're ready to listen and you're ready to discuss. And I think that we had like a very intense 2 days, and we will go straight forward to the session. We will start, as always, from video, which will give a mood, and then I will introduce everyone. Please, video. So my name is Lina Frolova. I'm representing here Center for Defense Strategies, and I will be a moderator of this panel. And I'm here in double capacity because I'm also representing the expert network of Crimean Platform. And I would like to start with the reference of the first panel, where the Putin one prof said that we need to acknowledge where we are. And I think that this is one of the biggest problems for political elites now, to acknowledge where we are and to understand that we won't wake up tomorrow in the peace situation if we won't work for this. Military often said that hope is not a strategy. I believe so, but I also believe that the dream can be a strategy. And we should have a dream, which should be our like a final destination place. But to make this dream work, we need to have a good planning, how we reach the destination, how we will come there. And together with experts from Expert Network of Crimean Platform, we developed the paper, non-paper, which you all have in your bags, where we put exact our vision for future configuration of security situation. And we try to make it as practical as possible, as big as possible, and as concrete as possible. So we do analyze the situation. We concentrate on the sanctions policy, on exact steps which governments can make and which any expert can make to make the peaceful situation and security settlement come here in the Black and Azov Sea region. I just want to name a few of them, and then I will leave you, hope, the time to read it by yourself and to think about it. So what we are worried about and what we do recommend to our international partners, it's first of all to formulate the strategy towards the Black Sea. Black Sea was long enough, like a black hole on the European map, and we need to come back to it. We need to change the European Union maritime security strategy, which actually mentioned just in one sentence Ukraine and the Black Sea. We need to have the clear formulation from NATO how NATO sees itself in the Black Sea, how NATO sees the development of the capabilities of the Black Sea NATO members and partners. We put the proposal to establish the joint naval platform, which can include many different initiatives working for freedom of navigation, protection of sea lines communication, demining coalition. We also said about the problem of transportations, which Russia actively use to transport the weapons and stolen grains with the civilian ships, and many other actions which can be done to deal with those challenges which we faced. I'm absolutely agree with the Minister Kuleba that we need to have a secure place, that we need to have more NATO, more leading countries, and more will of Black Sea nation countries. And I'm absolutely agree with the Turkish ambassador saying that we need more coordination and interoperability of the Black Sea nations. We need more active voice of Black Sea nations in all the alliances. The only thing before I will give the floor to our distinguished panelists, the only thing I would like to say that dreams can come true. We all know this. Just 1 year ago, no one believed that Ukraine will survive. Then no one believed that Ukraine will have a successful counteroffensive. Now, some politicians still doubt that we can release Crimea. I'm telling you that this is Ukrainian dream, and no one can stop Ukrainian dream. And I welcome you to join those who can dream and who can implement their dreams. I welcome you to join Ukraine and to join the Black Sea community to make this place a very safe place. Thank you, and let me introduce our distinguished panelists. Ms. Emina Japarova, First Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine. Mr. Oleksii Reznikov, Minister of Defense of Ukraine. Bogdan Aurescu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania. Tîlvăr, Minister of National Defense of Romania. Nicu Popescu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Moldova. And Mircea Geoana, Deputy Secretary General, NATO. So we have stated that we will discuss the future, we will discuss the strategy and how we see this future and future configuration of the security. So I give the floor for your statements, but I ask you to concentrate on the ideas how we can strengthen deterrence and defense, how we can reinforce resilience, and how you see the future of this region. Emine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Alina. I think that all gentlemen sitting here have agreed to one rule with ladies first, so I might start my speech. But as you referred to the dream, I actually decided to violate my introductory remarks and to start with my own dream, because the Crimea platform is naturally linked with my dream. I remember when in 2014, as a journalist, I traveled Crimea back and forth, and I saw with my own eyes what happened on the peninsula while President Putin, when he was asked at the press conference if this was the Russian army to invade the peninsula, he said, no, you can buy the military form in any shop, go and buy. And then he lied to all of us, and we still have the repercussions of these lies up till today. And then when I left the peninsula with my cat, with my daughter, in 2 cars full of belongings to nowhere, actually to Kiev, this dream of fighting back for my homeland started. And in a couple of years after, the Crimea Platform Initiative was developed on an A4 scratch of paper, and today it is a global format platform that unites over 60 countries and international organizations. And there is one lesson. It is, from one hand, very simple, from another hand, not that simple, that teaches us. The Crimean lesson is the real peace, not appeasement. And whenever the aggression or the evil is not stopped, it becomes bigger. This is what we saw since 2014, when we all were looking for proper language to talk to Putin, or the proper person whom he might listen to, while having Minsk agreements, while having discussions and meetings in different formats. But the reality shows that Putin didn't care, and 24th of February became yet another stage, yet another aggression act, and today we face the war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crime of genocide in Ukraine. The first victim of the Crimean occupation was Rishat Ametov. He was a 33-year-old man who was a one-man picketer at the central square in Simferopol. He was stabbed to death, and his body was found in 2 weeks after, tortured and killed. The first victim of Donbas occupation was Gennady Bilichenko, as my minister referred today in his introductory remarks. He was a captain of the special security, so he was killed by the proxies of Russian FSB, Mr. Girkin, right on the spot. And since that, the whole Donbas occupation started. And I think that at this first panel discussion, we also discussed what kind of lessons we should learn. So the Crimean lesson is the one that we should now be prepared for the decisive actions, and Ukraine is demonstrating the decisive actions by paying the highest price possible, which is the price of our people. There is another lesson, which is a Bucharest lesson, that was in 2008, and April 3rd marked the 15th anniversary of the NATO summit in Bucharest, which was a turning point in modern history. It was an opportunity to take Ukraine and Georgia out of the so-called gray zone. But beneath these optimistic statements about our countries potentially becoming a member of NATO, there was a hidden rejection, in fact, to accept Ukraine and other countries. And in 4 months after the Bucharest summit, it led to the beginning of Russia's war against Georgia, and in 6 years after, the Ukrainian invasion. So Russian occupation of Crimea back in 2014 became a knockout for the security of the Black Sea region. My next point is about the Black Sea as a militarized zone. We've seen how since 2017 Russia have been blocking the trade vessels that were leaving the Ukrainian ports by stopping them for days and hours. We've seen how Russia has been using the Black Sea as a projection of its military aggression, not only to the to the neighboring countries or to the region, but also to the Middle East. And I think that what we also see is that lack of strategic vision. So like my formula for our common action is vision, action, and cohesion. So really, when we have different strategies of different organizations, dedicated pages of papers on security issues, we cannot escape discussing the Black Sea region and the Azov Sea region, and the Azov Sea has in fact turned into an inner lake of the Russian Federation. What is the future? I believe that after this vision, it's crucial to, let's say, have coordination platforms, or those platforms that would develop certain and concrete acts. We are very grateful to experts who developed a very comprehensive, I would say, paper. So we will really take this paper for our, let's say, work, and we believe that we can travel from country to country in the Black Sea region and also talk to our colleagues by also formalizing this Black Sea cooperation for several reasons. Coastal Guard, the demining issue. You know that Ukraine is one of the most polluted countries in the world today, with 1,075,000 of square kilometers under mines, and it will be a long-term process. So I believe demining might be the first step, and Minister Aurescu, during our trilateral meeting today with Moldova and Romania, has already agreed to that demining might be the first step in this future configuration of our practical implementation. So the regional cooperation is really, really important. And to sum up, to wrap up, my personal formula for Ukraine that today is dealing with the war is survival, revival, and arrival. Our main existential task is to survive. And here we have you, all of your respective countries, without whom we would not be able to resist that long, even though there were very skeptical voices about that we would be able to do that long. The revival, it will be the infrastructure projects we also discussed today with our colleagues from Moldova and Romania, the next meeting in the trilateral cooperation. It is very important, and President Zelensky, I think, made a genius step in kind of putting the effort into the future, because it's also a therapy for Ukrainian people when you not only focus on the repercussions of the war, but you also discuss the future. And as Alina said, there is a hope, and there is still a hope that there will be a future, and discussing that in a very constructive way is yet another therapy, I would say. And arrival. Our dream is to arrive to EU, to NATO, being a part of the family. And coming from India, I had a 2-day visit there, while Prime Minister Narendra Modi has defined a motto of G20 is one earth, one family, one future. We really believe that everything is interconnected, and we cannot speak about the future of the world without escaping the discussion of Ukraine. So Ukraine is seeking for the membership in both EU and NATO as the only way how we can feel ourselves secured. But we also believe that we can contribute both to the security, economic growth, not only of the region, but also of the globe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aurescu, the floor is yours.
Well, dear friends, dear colleagues, indeed, as Emine just said, we had a very good trilateral meeting between Romania, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova. But my colleagues told me that you had very fruitful and meaningful debates. And one conclusion, I think it's quite clear already since our discussion in the morning. The security situation is not what we wish for, but paradoxically the war of Russia also brought some interesting, I would say even positive developments. Because what happened last year was that Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova were granted EU candidate status. Georgia was granted the European perspective. Finland just became a NATO ally. Sweden is in the process for becoming one, hopefully very soon, by the Vilnius summit. We also took very important, decisive, crucial decisions to consolidate our deterrence and defense on the eastern flank, including at the Black Sea. We have now a battle group in Romania and in the other countries in the southern part of the eastern flank. Allies, including Romania, have increased their defense expenditures, and we hope for a very important decision to be taken during the Vilnius summit. We accelerated measures for cutting off dependencies from Russia. We consolidated our resilience and the resilience of our partners. Of course, we have to do more about that, but, well, it is already a very important process in that regard. And we have strengthened our unity, including our transatlantic unity. So we are also more determined to defend the rules-based international order and the values the Ukrainian people are fighting so bravely for. All these are developments which were prompted by the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. So, the global importance of this war and of the peace which will follow this war are extremely clear for all of us. So, what is really important is to become stronger and more united even more. And Romania's top priority, as I mentioned in the morning, is to transform the Black Sea region from an area of conflict and war to an area of peace, stability, and prosperity. And indeed, the question is how to do it. I will start from the fact that, as I mentioned in the morning, the Black Sea region is important for the Euro-Atlantic security, which is recognized by the NATO strategic concept we adopted last year. But we need to turn these words into reality. First, we need compliance with international law, and this includes the firm policy of non-recognition of Crimea's illegal annexation. And this also includes a decisive fight against impunity, as Emine just mentioned. Second, we need effective deterrence and defense. My colleague, Minister Tîlvăr, I think he will speak about this more than I will do. So I will only say this. We need to be able to effectively defend every inch of our territory along our borders, and we need to improve maritime and air security, situational awareness, monitoring capabilities. So the Black Sea must be and become a welcoming sea, open not only to riparian, but also to non-littoral states and ships, where littoral and non-littoral countries respect the rule of law and can train, can exercise together, and ship their goods and energy safely. As we prepare for the Vilnius summit, we need to work for the full implementation of the decisions we have taken in Madrid, especially those related to the deterrence and defense posture on the eastern flank, including at the Black Sea. Third, We need to prevent further conflict and project stability, because we have already in our region a lot of protracted conflicts. This current war against Ukraine is a culmination of a state of conflict which is simmering in the region since the demise of the Soviet Union. Protracted conflicts in Georgia, in the Republic of Moldova, in Karabakh or Nagorno-Karabakh, keeping the door closed to their resolution. We have advocated Romania within the European Union to put it in a more prominent place on the agenda of our diplomatic efforts. And we have to stimulate the support and the will of these countries to overcome long-standing animosities and unfreeze the resolution of local conflicts, build lasting peace and security. Fourth, we need to secure long-term support for building democratic, effective, resilient defense and security systems in the region. And of course, the NATO-EU cooperation is also important in that respect, building on the third NATO-EU joint declaration, which was recently adopted. Fifth, we need to look at other security components. Emine just mentioned demining, but also exploiting energy resources, protecting the energy infrastructure, coping with civilian emergencies, natural disasters. All these are legitimate needs in our region, and the international community, NATO, EU, our states can play useful roles in these areas in cooperation with and with the support of the littoral state, including Romania. Six, we need to look at the wider region, because Black Sea security is, of course, crucial for Romania, for Bulgaria, for Turkey, NATO countries, but also for Moldova, for Georgia, for Armenia, for Azerbaijan, and further afar to Central Asia. Of course, the Republic of Moldova, as we have discussed today, after Ukraine, the most affected country by the war in Ukraine. And we are doing our best to help. But more help is needed. Chișinău has stood up seeking for candidate status and a stronger partnership with NATO, even if fully respecting their neutral status. We should respond to their orientation with all the support we can, and we have to strengthen their defense capacities and increase their resilience. A stable and secure Black Sea can also offer alternative bridges to Central Asian and Caucasus countries, towards Europe and vice versa. We need to think on a long-term perspective. All these countries are currently under immense pressure. We can help them strengthening their own defense, build viable institutions, increase their resilience, develop trade, energy ties, open our markets to their products as an alternative to selling them to Russia. The agreement for an underway electricity cable from Azerbaijan via Georgia and the Black Sea to Romania and Hungary is an example of what we can do together. And I think perhaps NATO can do more by expanding its defense and capacity building programs to all interested Caucasus and Central Asian countries, offering expertise against hybrid tactics, protection of critical infrastructure, of course, respectful of each and every country's specificity, interests, and needs. And last but not least, it is clearly acknowledged that the DNA of the Black Sea security is transatlantic. The US troops are deployed on the Romanian Black Sea shore, keeping the American promise to defend every inch of the alliance. The US Congress and the administration are vested in the security, stability, democracy, and prosperity of the Black Sea. We look forward to the US Black Sea strategy, to which we have contributed to. And we are grateful and ready to continue working together for its implementation. For the security of the Black Sea region, we need a transatlantic to-do list. We count on the support of all our partners and allies to frame and to strengthen it. And I'm sure that the valuable insights of the high-level meeting in Bucharest will further contribute to this. Before closing, I want to reiterate our full gratitude to our Ukrainian friends and partners for organizing together this very topical event. And I have the certitude that our discussions today framed our substantial agenda, which approached the most relevant and pressing security threats to the security of the Black Sea region. We discussed a set of priorities to ensure stability and prosperity of the region, and I also want to express gratitude to all of you who have participated here in Bucharest. A stable and prosperous Black Sea region would yield security and economic benefits for the entire Europe, for the Euro-Atlantic region, for the entire world. And I invite all of you to design and contribute to such efforts. So thank you once again for your valuable participation in Bucharest, and I'm looking forward to the second edition, hopefully in a war-free Ukraine.
In Odessa, I hope so. Or Crimea. Mr. Reznikov, the floor is yours.
Dear ministers, deputy ministers, colleagues, in order to discuss the future, we should first emphasize where we stand now, from the point of view of security architecture. We are facing a completely new reality in this reality. The OSCE, as an international organization, has disappeared off the map. Finland's accession to NATO has de facto put a symbolic end to the history of agreements based on 1975 Helsinki Act. The UN Security Council is currently chaired by a representative of Russia, a terrorist state coming full-scale aggression and the genocide of the Ukrainian people. An arrest warrant has been issued by the leader of the Russian terrorist regime for the kidnapping of thousands of Ukrainian children. Nevertheless, Russia holds the right of veto in international affairs. As for me, this is absurd. The aggressor state has weaponized everything: energy, migrants, food, the cyberspace, religious organizations, the media. Its instruments include attacking peaceful cities with missiles and drones to cause a humanitarian catastrophe, jeopardize free navigation, undermining the global food security, using third states as its proxies. The Kremlin has also resorted to open nuclear blackmail, first by capturing nuclear power plants, then by threats of using nuclear weapons or removing them to another country. This is the final nail in the coffin of another component of the current security architecture, nuclear weapons non-proliferation treaties. Let me remind you that, according to the Budapest Memorandum, Ukraine has willingly given up the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world in exchange for security guarantees. Let's ask an honest question. After what's happened to us, will anyone ever agree to voluntarily nuclear disarmament? Or is it the opposite? Will they do everything in their power to get nuclear weapons by any means necessary? The rule of force, not rule of law, is the new model that might take hold in the world, if it's not met with a resistance. Speaking of our region, Russians have tried to seize the island of Tuzla after the Budapest Memorandum. Later, Ukraine's and Sakartvelo's road to NATO was blocked at the NATO summit in this amazing capital, Bucharest. That followed by the attack on Sakartvelo after that. That followed was the attack of Ukraine and the occupation of Crimea. This is the result of a flaved policy that includes the following approaches. The paradigm of not provoke the Russians in order to maintain business as usual. Act after the fact, when everything has already happened. Enforce compromises at the cost of the victim of the aggression. These are ideal conditions for an aggressor. He managed to project power and achieve goals while the free world slowly formulated an answer. If a Russian attack will be successful in any level, not just our region but the world at large will become a very dangerous place indeed. Because this will be a huge temptation for other aggressors. This gives us some clues as to both the general security configuration and concrete steps we need to take. 5 bullets. First, we need to change the paradigm. Act fast, act preventively, stay a step ahead instead of merely reacting after the fact. We should not be afraid to use force and strong sanctions. Aggressors should recognize that they will not manage to obtain the result, but we will suffer colossal damages. On this act, Day last year, the Ukrainian army, on this day, the Ukrainian army, I mean Ukrainian Navy, has hit the cruiser Moskva. Russia has lost a flagship of its navy for the first time in over a century. That was followed by the several operations that had forced Russians to flee the Snake Island to make a goodwill gesture. We have then chased the Russian Navy further away. That allowed us to launch the grain initiative. And in this place, I would like to special thanks to Turkey and UNSG for their amazing, outstanding leadership. And no amount of negotiations or begging would have accomplished that. Decisive actions are what gives the Kremlin the right ideas. Second, we need a system of guarantees that would make aggressor from Russia impossible. It presents no alternative to the NATO format. 3 countries of the region are already NATO members. There is no alternative to Ukraine's accession to NATO. The allies' security infrastructure needs to be scaled up to the east. Ukraine has already proven its interoperability. Ukraine has already made its move by formally applying to join NATO. No progress towards this goal just extends the period of uncertainty and risks. Last week, Russia's border with the NATO has doubled in the length. What did Moscow do in response? Nothing. So we need to act. Third, without the liberation of Crimea and any talk about regional security is nothing more than an illusion. Russia has started by occupying the Sea of Azov before launching its creeping occupation of western part of the Black Sea by blocking areas next to navigation routes for the military exercises. Nobody had provoked the Kremlin. This is just their usual tactic. Push until it bends. This is what's at stake with the recent attack on US drone and with missile launches that pose a threat to several countries. Let me remind you that Russia's federal TV channel have called for the capture of sea straits after the earthquake in Turkey. This is the empire's phantom pains. As long as Russia controls Crimea, it must continue trying for an expansion in the imperial spirit. If we want security, stability, and prosperity for the region, Crimea needs to be liberated. This is in our shared best interests. Fourth, some partners maintain that matters concerning the region cannot be worked out without involving Russia. We need to recognize honestly that accomplishing a sustainable peace and preconditions for mutual prosperity in the region is impossible without transformation in Russia. Without that transformation, we are just postponing dealing with the problems instead of solving them. Transformation in Russia needs to be an element of the agenda. Russia has to receive a clear joint signal. If it will not be able to return to the civilized world without changing, it will not be trusted. Unfailingly, upholding sanctions has to be a part of this signal. Russia has to become a democratic federation. It has to undergo denazification. It has to alone. Russia's strategic defeat is evident, but without meaningful transformation, we will not get more than a respite before the next war. Fifth, time is the essence. Prolonging or freezing the war will mean that the progress of the entire region will stall. It will mean lost opportunities. Meanwhile, others will keep marching forward. Ukraine wants to turn the tide on the battlefield this year. The stakes are the highest for us, but it is not our shared best interest. And our army has already proven that this is possible. In order to do so, we need help, and we need it as soon as possible. Such a support has to include delivery of weapons and ammunition of diverse types, development of resistance sustainment system for Western types equipment, training of Ukrainian military units, increasing the level of exchanging of information on the development of the situation in the region, in the sky and in the sea, strengthening and control of the sanctions regime against the Russians, deepening the operational interoperability of the military units of Ukraine and partners countries. This is the general framework. framework. Speaking of concrete steps that can be taken fairly fast, I could mention the establishment of permanent acting consultation group on political and defense levels to elaborate joint initiatives aimed in increasingly security in the Azov and Black Sea region, interaction with the framework of maritime strategy of the European Union, applying the environment of data exchange within the framework of the common information sharing environment, and participation in the project of the European Defence Agency Maritime Surveillance, taking part in projects of NATO and EU to develop the system of protection for the maritime infrastructure. Years ago, many believed that Kyiv would fall within 3 days, followed by Ukraine within a couple of weeks. And yet, we are here now to discuss the future. I have no doubt that the future is a success story. Thank you very much. We will win together. Slava Ukraini!
Mr. Tîlvăr, the floor is yours.
This panel constitutes the perfect setup for a depth and realistic discussion regarding the current security situation in our region and the steps that have to be taken in order to ensure stability in the Black Sea region. The Black Sea is an area where the risk of further severe escalations and aggressive maneuver by Russia remains high. Moscow is using unhindered the Black Sea as a platform to impede freedom of navigation, fueling tensions in the region, including through protracted conflicts, generating gray zones, and creating favorable conditions for transnational security threats. Its main objectives are to maintain regional instability, impact the free will of our partners in choosing their future, while projecting force in the Mediterranean Sea towards the Middle East. After the annexation of Crimea in 2014, the continuous attacks on Ukraine represented an unacceptable signal from Russia Federation regarding the use of force in achieving political and security objectives at the regional level. At the Black Sea, Moscow is determined to acquire domination of the region, preventing and even censoring the Allied defense and deterrence, as well as NATO's freedom of movement, and last but not least, undermining internal stability, coherence, and development of region partners. You are well aware, dear colleagues, of the serious concerns about the evolutions of the security situation in the Black Sea region. We need to choose the right measures in the right format to the right amount and use them at the right time in order to negate the fulfillment of the aggressive objectives and to reinforce the implementation of our own. Moscow's actions are aimed explicitly at its subversion, deconstruction, and replacement of the post-Cold War international order with a multipolar alternative, an alternative founded on the concepts of geopolitical blocks and spheres of influence. As always, the answer lies in unity of purpose and action. We see the need for a Euro-Atlantic strategy, for a stable, secure, and prosperous Black Sea. And we think that NATO, EU, and US play a visible, continuous, and consistent role in the region. The war in Ukraine proved that the Black Sea is a critical frontier for Europe's new security architecture. For Romania and the entire international community, the borders of Ukraine, Republic of Moldova, and Georgia are the ones recognized at international level, and we will continue to strongly support their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Romania is today a reliable and valued ally and partner. Romania demonstrates ambition, political will, the ability to contribute to the implementation of common future priorities, including by firmly assuming the role of security provider. As a result of the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine and the intensification of security risks facing the Black Sea has become a sample for one of the most pressing challenges we face today. From violations of international law, weaponization of energy, sophisticated hybrid tactics, cyber attacks, and disinformation. Having in mind the strategic importance of the region, as it was recognized in the NATO strategic concept and EU strategic compass, it is imperative to ensure a more structured approach with respect to the projects and initiatives in support of security of the region. The current security evolutions have once again showed tremendous importance of the transatlantic relationship, a relationship we have put it at the foundation of our nation's security and defense architecture. It has been a key factor in shaping the modern international system, and it remains a vital source of stability and security today. To manage these systemic challenges, we should improve our shared awareness and understanding, boost our resilience and preparedness, and protect our shared values and the rules-based international order. The Black Sea region has been marked by protracted conflicts as well as by risks and challenges of security and economic nature for 3 decades. The region also holds significant economic potential as the east-west corridor between Europe and Eurasia. That is why Romania and the other stakeholders, including US, should work together to ensure that the Black Sea evolves from an area of conflict and tension into an area of peace, security, cooperation, and economic prosperity. We need a sustainable combat-ready land presence along NATO's eastern flank, as well as a solid presence of military aircrafts of allied countries patrolling the skies of the Black Sea and ensuring the security of our airspace. Currently, there are 5,000 troops deployed in Romania under NATO or bilateral arrangements. So, Romania is doing its part for the security of the eastern flank and the Black Sea, and we are steadfast in our commitments and contributions, and we support that the major decisions our leaders took last year in Madrid to achieve its full potential. Thank you very much.
Mr. Popescu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm probably speaking the 20th time in my life at the National Military Circle, and that's really a great pleasure. And here I am today for the trilateral meeting of Moldova, Ukraine, and Romania. We've been coordinating and working closely on a lot of issues on the diplomatic front, on security and defense cooperation, on energy, and I cannot keep but remind myself today that the last time we met in the trilateral format was in Odessa in September, and our joint press conference with Bogdan and Dmytro ended under air sirens because there was an impending attack. I think we had around 10-15 minutes of our press conference under air sirens, and I remember looking at Dmytro, and as long as he was calm, I was calm, and Bogdan was calm. But then the true depression and concern hit me when Bogdan and I started driving back to Moldova, and we knew that our friends and partners and Dmytro and his colleagues had to stay under air sirens, under bombings, and that's truly something that we all feel very closely to our hearts. And by starting this, I can tell you, and even this small instance of our trilateral dialogue also reminds us that what Ukraine is going through is an incredible tragedy of enormous proportions, and nothing compares to that. But Moldova, as a country next to Ukraine, with not a lot of capabilities, has been there severely affected by this war. And after Ukraine being one of the countries where the impact of the war has been the most dramatic on our country's security, on our country's economy, on our country's energy security, on our cyber security, on our everything. Every single domain in Moldova has been negatively affected by this war, and every single person living on the territory of Moldova has been negatively affected by this war. However, we have managed to cope reasonably well given the circumstances with the last year, and the list of the negative impact of the war on Moldova is very long. I can give you numbers upon numbers. We've had 30+% inflation, the gas prices for the population went up 7 times, electricity prices went up 4 times, etc., etc. But we did manage to cope. With the last year, we have managed to keep stability and calm, and the economic resilience of our country has been reasonably good despite these shocks. And that we have managed to do primarily thanks to Ukraine. As we speak today, Moldova is not facing immediate military risks, and this is because of Ukraine. It's because of the Ukrainian people, it's because of the Ukrainian army, it's because of the Ukrainian society and political system, which have kept the Russian tanks away from our border and has allowed Moldova to benefit from peace, calm, and stability, and a certain ability to deal with the other threats we're facing. And of course, in this series of threats, Moldova has long been a primary target of Russian hybrid war tactics deployed against Moldova. Some of them have been started to being deployed even before our independence. Russian support for separatism, a Russian TV program about Moldova in 1990 or 91 roughly has the same tone and the same amount of toxic propaganda against us as you would have today on Russian TV. So some of those tactics we have been living with for a long time. But of course, in the last year, they have increased exponentially. As I said, though, we have managed to keep violence away from our streets. Our intelligence services, police, the defense ministry has worked incredibly well to make sure that violence is kept away from Moldova, that our functionality as a country, as a society, as an economy stays solid. And that is something which also allowed us to concentrate and together with Ukraine to engage in this deepening and accelerated road of accession to the European Union. So if we are trying to look ahead, for Moldova, the immediate goals is, along with Ukraine, is to accelerate, deepen and intensify all our links in all domains with those countries and institutions that support Moldovan liberty, Moldovan democracy and Moldovan Europeanness. And here, of course, I mean Romania, first and foremost, you know that we share a culture, a history, a language and a common future in the European family with all the countries, as I said, that support us and institutions. And that includes the European Union, NATO, who have really done an amazing job in supporting us through this last year. And here, Mircea, Geoana and I are also regularly meeting on all kinds of platforms in Brussels and other cities to make sure that we deepen our cooperation. And that has been going reasonably well. We are on track to making significant progress this year towards EU accession. We're also engaged in several concrete ways of strengthening our security and defense cooperation through the European Union, with the EU member states. Just in the next few weeks, we will have several announcements becoming finalized and public. In a few weeks, the European Union will launch a CSDP civilian mission to Moldova. We'll announce a package of sanctions, hopefully, which will be targeting those oligarchs that work together with Russia to destabilize Moldova and to bring violence on our streets. And through the European Peace Facility, Moldova has been, along with Ukraine, a great beneficiary of European military assistance, which allows us to strengthen our capacity to keep peace and calm on our territory. Having said that, I will probably end here. That would allow us for more time to interact through questions and answers. And our plan for the immediate future on the diplomatic, on the political, on the strategic front is to continue standing by Ukraine, showing all solidarity and all support that we can give to Ukraine, and being, as I said, thankful and grateful for the sacrifice that Ukraine is taking in defending itself, but also by doing so in defending Moldova. And we, as I said, are engaged in this fastening and deepening of our integration with EU institutions and countries. And by doing so, we know we are not alone. We know we have dozens of states we can count on. Sometimes we have this joke with Bogdan that Moldova has 2 foreign ministers, and that's, I think, the best example of the degree of our coordination and integration, and this is the road ahead for us. And by doing this together, we will be able to keep the peace, the stability, and the Europeanness of our country. Thank you.
Mr. Geoana, the floor is yours. No one wants to take this one.
Thank you so much, Alina, and it's good to be back home. This place that symbolizes Romania's national identity and the sacrifice over generations and historical periods to be finally part of the West. I had a long and interesting discussion with my friend Oleksii Reznikov earlier. And I also was a physical participant and contributor to the launch of the Crimean platform in August 2021 in Kiev. And I was a little bit puzzled why I was invited as NATO representative to speak last. And I asked President Zelensky and Dmytro Kuleba, why did we invite NATO to speak last? Is that a message? And with his exceptional humor and wisdom, the President, the Foreign Minister, told me the guy that speaks last will have the most lasting impact on the audience. Let's hope this will be the case also in Bucharest. The day after the Crimean platform launch, and by the way, I was impressed by the leader of the Crimean Tatars, an old gentleman, dignified and heroic, and also telling us that if we allow an imperialistic power to grab by force territory from an independent nation, we are doomed for this scenario to happen not only in Europe but elsewhere. What happens in Europe can also happen in Asia. What happens in the Black Sea could happen tomorrow if we don't do things right now and here, in another sea and ocean, in the Pacific, or wherever else. The day after the Crimean platform launch, I attended the 30th anniversary of the independence of Ukraine. I really remember the big square, and also men were wearing E, as we said them in Romanian. And I asked the day before President Zelensky, I said, Mr. President, when are you going to respond to the infamous long essay by President Putin? I think that is still on the website of the Kremlin. And basically, he denies the national identity and culture of Ukraine. And he smiled, and he said, listen to my speech tomorrow. I listened to his speech on the 30th anniversary of Ukraine. And I heard a leader of a proud nation anticipating probably trouble to come, with a sense of national identity and resilience and hunger for a better future. That is probably the explanation of the heroism that we see with our Ukrainian friends in this difficult, barbaric war. We are living in a world which is competitive and dangerous. And this is not only because of this war, it's also because of the global shift and great power competition. A competition defined by a fight between democracies and authoritarian regimes. The Black Sea region is at the heart of today's discussion. And as a Romanian, I also know and I feel that this is a region which is strategically important area for Euro-Atlantic security. Of course, for the riparian states, but also as a platform, a springboard for Russia to project power to Africa, to the Middle East, in what we call in NATO a 360-degree approach. So what happens in the Black Sea is not only for the Black Sea only, is also for the Mediterranean Sea, for the Adriatic Sea, for the Indian Ocean, and beyond. The Black Sea region has been the focus of Russia's aggressive buildup and actions for more than 2 decades now. And the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the portions of the Donbass were just, if you want, a startup. This is also influencing the Western Balkans. This is influencing also our Georgian friends. It's influencing our Moldovan friends. It's influencing our friends in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is why Russia's irresponsible and hostile behavior in the broader Black Sea region is deeply affecting the security of the entire alliance. So when in Madrid last year, when our leaders approved the strategic concept saying the strategic importance of the Black Sea, this is not just a piece of paper. This is a fundamental belief and action by our alliance. We stepped up our presence in the region since 2014. We enhanced our cooperation partnership with Ukraine. And this is why our footprint after the full-blown war by Russia is increasing. I would like to thank our French and Italian allies for leading the 2 battle groups in Romania and Bulgaria. And of course, to our allies in Turkey for the immense role that they play in a much broader region. We have now 4 more new battle groups, and we'll be bringing them up to brigade level as needed. And also encouraging pre-positioning of equipment and also multi-domain operations, because it's not only about sea, land, and air, but also about cyberspace and space. We continue and we will continue to support Ukraine. We have stood by Ukraine since the independence of this country back in 1991. Over the last year, allies have provided unprecedented support for Ukraine's right to self-defense, with 65 billion euros of military aid, and Oleksii and his colleague in the Ministry of Defense know that this is going to continue. NATO will stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes, and will support your long-term path to Euro-Atlantic integration. And as a Romanian and a foreign minister of this country, who has the privilege to raise the flag of my country as a new NATO member back in 19 years ago already, and seeing our Finnish new allies and our Swedish new allies joining our ranks, I know that you belong to the West, you belong to the family of democracies, you belong to the Euro-Atlantic family, and we are standing with you all the way. We also have increased our support to other partners at risk of Russian aggression, including for the Republic of Moldova, and I salute Nicu Popescu, a brilliant diplomat and leader. But our friends in Georgia, they are an enhanced opportunity partner to NATO, and we are looking forward to continuing to invest in our partnership. And I wish you the best of luck also on the EU front, because this is also very important for you, together with Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova, to go towards Europe. Nicu Popescu remembers that when you visited NATO HQ earlier this year, and also some of your colleagues, we discussed how to deepen our cooperation with full respect for Moldova's independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and constitutional neutrality. I welcome the partnership we have both through NATO and the EU, and I encourage the Republic of Moldova to make even better use of this joint partnership between NATO, EU, and the Republic of Moldova. There is more synergy to be identified and more things we can do and will do together. Your neutrality does not mean we cannot work together with NATO. On the contrary, NATO is stepping up political and practical support to Moldova through an enhanced capacity building package. We support your political aspirations to join the West and also to increase your national resilience. Because resilience is crucial, is multifaceted. Sometimes it has explicit aggressive behavior, sometimes more implicit and insidious facets. Russia is using all the conventional and hybrid tools in its toolbox. And the Republic of Moldova is the place where Russia is fooling to its fullest extent the toolbox of hybrid warfare against your country, in order to hamper economic development and foment instability in the region. So we need to strengthen our individual and collective resilience to withstand any threats and challenges, from conventional to cyber attacks, to disinformation and attempts to interfere in our democracies and economies. We can learn much from one another, amongst allies and partners, building up stronger societies and more resilient critical infrastructures in a team effort. Recently, NATO and the EU, our Secretary General and President von der Leyen would establish a joint task force on critical infrastructure. And I encourage the countries in the Black Sea region to co-opt and be active in this new format, because also the Black Sea has critical infrastructures we need to protect, defend, and make sure that they work to the benefit of our people. So we look forward to working with all of you as we head towards our next summit in Vilnius in July. We look forward to welcoming Dmytro Kuleba, Oleksii to our ministerial meetings. Nico, if you want to be again like you have been in Bucharest for the foreign ministers meeting that Bogdan has hosted, I think a few months back, you are always welcome amongst our ranks. And of course, we look forward to welcoming President Zelensky at the NATO summit in Vilnius in mid-July. So in this temple of Romanian national identity and struggle over generations to become part of the political, democratic, and hopefully prosperous West, I send you our best message of hope. We'll stay with Ukraine for the long haul. And the place of all these independent nations, from Georgia to Moldova, from Ukraine to Bosnia, and to any other democracy in Europe, if you choose so, to be with Euro-Atlantic family, this dream will come true. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we come to discussion, in accordance with our traditions here, we give the floor for short statements for our country partner representatives. And we will start with Mr. Lasha Darsalia, First Deputy Minister of the Foreign Affairs, Georgia.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, dear ministers, dear colleagues, distinguished attendees, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor of mine to address the first Black Sea Security Conference in the framework of Crimea Platform. I express my sincere gratitude to His Excellency Foreign Minister Kuleba and His Excellency Foreign Minister Aurescu for this important initiative, which is extremely timely in such extraordinary circumstances for Euro-Atlantic security. For more than a year now, we have been witnessing Russia's unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine. The scale and devastation of the war have severely impacted nearly all aspects of regional security. A terrible year of brutal hostilities has taught us many invaluable lessons we are obliged to learn carefully. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated the necessity of having a firm and consistent strategy on the wider Black Sea security. Bearing in mind the strategic significance of the Black Sea region, for years we had been advocating for enhanced Western engagement in the region and the development of a consistent strategic approach towards this contested flank of Euro-Atlantic space. Accordingly, we welcome the bolstered NATO and the US presence in the region and the Allied decision to recognize the Black Sea as a strategically important region for the Alliance in NATO Strategic Concept 2022. However, more has to be done. The time is now for NATO to make a long-delayed decision and adopt a comprehensive strategy for the wider Black Sea region. The strategy should address regional security in all the relevant domains and envisage concrete actions. We believe that strategy should aim to develop joint mechanisms for the effective tackling of disinformation campaigns, strengthening national cyber security systems, improving communication and transportation systems, and protecting critical infrastructure. At the same time, the EU needs to address the wider Black Sea region from the economic and energy security perspective. Today, Europe is in urgent need of the diversification of economic and energy sources. And since the Black Sea region represents a historic transit route between Europe and Asia, it has to be transformed into a major transit hub for supply from Central Asia to Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, the strengthened security of the wider Black Sea region is a guarantee of peace and stability in the whole Euro-Atlantic area. We should spare no effort to make the region functional again. In the new security architecture that shall be created after the restoration of territorial integrity of Ukraine and other regional states, the wider Black Sea region should be acknowledged under the common security umbrella of the international liberal Western order. Another major lesson the recent history has taught us is that peace and security in our region are achievable only under the collective defense umbrella. Therefore, the best policy to ensure persistent deterrence and defense in the entire Euro-Atlantic area, including the Black Sea region, is full political integration of countries like Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova, genuinely European nations, into European and respectively into Euro-Atlantic family. And finally, let me express my sincere gratitude to Romanian side for hosting us today and Ukrainian side as a co-hosts. Thank you very much, and Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Slava, ďakujem. Representative of the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, United Kingdom, Mr. Andrew Ford.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, Ministers, Representatives. It's a great honour and pleasure to be here on behalf of the United Kingdom. We are very grateful to Ukraine and Romania for organising and hosting this conference. And we welcome the chance to join colleagues today for this important discussion. The UK stands with Ukraine and will continue to do so for as long as it takes, for Ukraine to prevail against Russia's assault on their sovereignty and territorial integrity. We'll do it with continuing military aid, training, humanitarian assistance, political support, and by helping mobilise the international community. For the UK and the international community must and do stand against Russia's naked aggression and for freedom, democracy, and the sovereignty of nations around the world in compliance with the UN Charter and the rules-based international system. We are learning lessons at a national level and want to take every opportunity, such as this, to learn internationally along with our allies, partners, and friends. The UK government has recently updated its international strategy to take account of Russia's latest invasion of Ukraine and of an increasingly contested wider world. The review confirms that our most pressing foreign policy priority is indeed to address the threat posed by Russia to European security. Our conclusion is that democracies like ours must go further together to out-cooperate and out-compete states that are driving instability in order to uphold the stability, security, and prosperity of our continent and the Euro-Atlantic area as a whole. The UK is proud of the support we have given Ukraine, but military assistance, sanctions, and humanitarian aid are not enough. For when this war is over, we must never again allow Ukraine to be left vulnerable to attack. We must together make sure that Ukraine, its regional neighbourhood, and all countries in the Euro-Atlantic area are safe and secure and able to thrive economically. That is why, for example, among other things, the UK is already supporting Ukrainian capacity building in maritime demining. That is why the UK is pleased to co-host the Ukraine Recovery Conference in London in June of this year, to mobilise beyond the NATO framework. The UK is also privileged to enjoy strategic partnerships with many countries represented here from around the Black Sea region. We will continue to deepen these partnerships, refreshing and updating those that we have, and seeking opportunities to form new ones. Our first task is to support Ukraine to win the war and to recover from it. But thereafter, we must be ready, with allies and partners, to help modernise, maintain and support future Euro-Atlantic security into the longer term. While delivering significant support to Ukraine and bilaterally and via NATO tailored support packages to other countries in the Black Sea region affected by Russia's aggression, we also have much to learn from our partners, especially about national resilience. To close, let me return to lessons. We're all already learning many political, economic, energy security, and wider security lessons from this conflict, and will be doubtless doing so for years to come, as a future European security order becomes clearer. This conference is visible, public acknowledgement of that. The breadth, depth, and ingenuity of ideas and proposals that we've heard today enriches that learning process and offers much food for further thought. However, the biggest lesson, surely, must be for the Kremlin. We must all do what we can for as long as necessary for Russia to learn that mounting an unprovoked, premeditated, illegal, and barbaric assault against a sovereign democratic state was wrong, that it was and continues to be a huge strategic mistake, and above all, that it has not and will not succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. George Radulovic, Foreign Policy Advisor to the Prime Minister of Montenegro.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to say how thankful we are for organizing to the Ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs of Romania and Ukraine for organizing this important event dealing with Black Sea region security that has enormous importance also far beyond this region and even in the Western Balkans. So more than a year has passed since the beginning of the relentless Russian aggression against Ukraine. 1 year since the Ukrainian people started a decisive struggle for the defense of its country and showed the strength of their courage and heroic fight to preserve the dignity of the country, the peace and freedom of Europe, the unity of the democratic world, and the values we strive for together. The security of the Black Sea is an issue that concerns not only coastal countries, riparian states, but the whole world. Thus, the Black Sea enhances geopolitical and economic competition at a global level and also adds a new dimension to the Euro-Atlantic security system. The situation in the Black Sea did not change overnight. For many years, Russia has been trying to stir up and to militarize this region. The Russian occupation of Crimea and full-scale invasion of Ukraine only exacerbated this threat. Russia's continued activities in this region have serious implications for the European security. In response, the West, political West, we must develop a comprehensive strategy to secure the long-term future of the Black Sea region. In the light of Russian aggression against Ukraine, we have an obligation as a partner countries to coordinate and contribute to the defense of Ukraine's internationally recognized rights and not allow Russia to continue abusing the Black Sea region by its illegitimate actions. Russia has been trying from the very beginning of its aggression to reduce NATO's presence on its eastern borders. But on the other hand, NATO has shown the strengthening of its role and the creation of a new sense of the alliance existence. This is evidenced also by the decision of Sweden and Finland to join the alliance, as well as Ukraine's application for accelerated membership. Through such events, the recognized need to preserve and build reliable and safe architecture of the future world is clearly visible. Today at this conference, Montenegro confirms its unequivocal support for Ukraine in its struggle to secure its integrity and sovereignty. This is an obligation for all of us. Not only that, it's our moral responsibility and the proof of our full dedication to reaching these goals. From the very beginning of the Russian invasion to Ukraine, Montenegro has shown solidarity with Ukraine and its people in the fight to defend the highest postulates of the international law, both bilaterally by sending military, humanitarian and material aid, and internationally by condemning all actions of Russia that in any way encroach on the sovereignty and integrity of this country. In such manner, Montenegro will continue, in coordination with allies, to support Ukraine in its path to freedom, well-being, and secure future, as well as its efforts to become a full member of the large European and Euro-Atlantic family to which Ukraine belongs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Iulian Chifu, Foreign Policy Advisor to the Romanian Prime Minister.
Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear ambassadors, thank you very much first for inviting me here at the conference, and allow me to congratulate in the name of the Romanian Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Defense, my good friend Alina Frolova, for putting together this conference based on Crimea platform. Here in Bucharest, it's a good place. I'm quite sure that we all agree for exchange of ideas, for the debates, for the consistency of what we need to do also in the future. And since it's about the future in that particular panel, allow me also to make 3 points related to what is now going on. Discussing about the future, we are always looking to criteria, to indicators, to what is happening. And for the short and mid-term, we should look at 3+1 conditions. The first one is for sure the resilience of Ukraine and of the Ukrainians. In the first line, but also behind the lines, the Ukrainian citizens who are supporting the war efforts. The second one is the resilience of the West. Resilience in supporting financially, in supporting militarily, in supporting humanitarianly the effort that Ukraine is doing those days in the full-scale war of Russia against its own territory, citizens, and independence. The third point would be the capacity of Ukraine to absorb, actually, the, let's call it the spring attack of the Russians, and to reply, because actually it needs to have its own counter-offensive. As we are seeing up to today, they are managing quite well, and we are looking forward to see the evolutions in the next month to come. And I have a +1 which is related to Russia, Putin's Russia. The capacity of Putin of maintaining the vertical of power, the system. We all know that in an autocracy, any little trigger can bring down, can lead to the implosion of such an actor. The second point is about the end of the war, actually about the conditions at the end of a war. So we have a first condition, which is that Ukraine should win, Russia should lose. If not, we are creating a precedent how a country can take parts of the territory of its neighbor. The second point is the fact that Russia needs to pay. It needs to pay in terms of creating the war, destruction, so it needs to, the whole Ukraine needs to be rebuilt. It needs to pay in terms of war crimes. It needs to pay also, and we already learned the lessons after the Second World War, in terms of never coming back to use the war in solving international relations, objectives, or excessive levels of ambition. And the third point comes for our citizens. All our citizens have made an extreme effort to support the war in terms of prices, inflation, support for the war in Ukraine. And it happens so because all of us, we would like to have our children, grandchildren, living in such, well, unprofessional democracy, but to have a choice, not to live under a type of Putin that tells them what to do. But it comes with costs, costs for the officials, for the decision makers. It comes with the cost that all people, companies, countries that are helping now Russia to avoid the sanction should pay. My third point is about what we already know that will happen after the war. First, Crimea platform. I think that we already have the symbol for a platform for all Russian illegally annexed territories, because it's not only about Crimea nowadays, unfortunately. The second point, what you are seeing is the fact that the weight, the strategic weight, moves in Europe eastern. And it will happen for the foreseeable future, since the security in Europe is not settled. And the third point, after the lessons learned of the Budapest Memorandum, actually, I don't think that we can think at any other type of guarantee for Ukraine's security, territorial integrity, sovereignty, independence, except NATO accession. So, these are facts. Thank you very much, and I wish you also the best on your return home. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador of Italy, Alfredo Maria Durante Mangoni.
Dear Ministers, Excellencies, esteemed guests, as we draw near to the 14th month of Russia's brutal and unprovoked aggression, let me highlight that Italy continues to stand firm and unwavering in its support for Ukraine, its territorial integrity and sovereignty, its independence and freedom, its resilience, its recovery and future reconstruction. Let me also highlight in the strongest, clearest possible terms, Crimea is Ukraine. The Russian Federation's illegal annexation of the peninsula in March 2014 remains a grave and unacceptable violation of key and universal principles of international law that underpin the peaceful coexistence among states and peoples. Since then, Italy, in close coordination with all partners and allies, continues to constantly and consistently condemn Russia's illegal actions in all possible occasions and relevant fora, while reasserting our shared non-recognition policy and any related measures. Our Ukrainian friends and partners can continue to count on us and on our vocal action in this regard, including through our support for multilateral resolutions concerning the status of Crimea and the situation of its inhabitants. Let me stress our deep concern for the dire situation of human rights in the peninsula under Russian control, with continued reports of violations perpetrated also against the Crimean Tatar community. Moreover, Crimea and its facilities were used and continue to serve its offensive actions, including against critical infrastructures. Dear guests, rest assured that Italy will remain committed to supporting your country's territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, its full sovereignty and political independence and freedom, as well as to contribute to address the security concerns of Romania and of the Republic of Moldova through our air policing mission, and acknowledge the strategic relevance of the Black Sea as a hotspot for the Atlantic Alliance. With regard to such commitments, talking about the future configuration of a prosperous and secure Black Sea region, in the next few days, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani on the 26th of April will host in Rome a bilateral high-level event about the contribution that Italy can provide to the resilience and reconstruction of Ukraine. Both governments, including the international financial institutions and business companies, will be involved since, as already mentioned, winning the war is the priority of today. Winning the peace must and will be the common challenge and the duty of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last statement, Manfred Seitz, General Director of the Danube Commission.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to address this conference on behalf of the Danube Commission, which safeguards the Danube Convention and thus ensures free and non-discriminatory navigation on one of the most important European waterway corridors. As a result of the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine, the member states of the Danube Commission excluded in March 2022 the Russian Federation from all its working groups and expressed a strong will to work on a new agreement that limits future membership to the Danube riparian states. Since May 2022, the Danube Commission supports the European Commission in implementing the EU-Ukraine Solidarity Lane Action Plan to facilitate Ukraine's agricultural exports and bilateral trade with the European Union. Working jointly together, Danube Commission and European Commission support Ukrainian and Romanian authorities as well as businesses in increasing the flow of goods through the Danube ports. And I might say that our joint work can be considered very successful. Since the beginning of the war, the Danube ports have handled more than 22 million tons of cargo, to a large extent agricultural products. The Ukrainian Danube ports alone offer now a daily transshipment capacity of up to 100,000 tons per day. 50% of the goods are transported by sea vessel, as the Danube guarantees, mainly to the port of Constanța, where almost 5 million tons of goods from Ukraine were handled. The importance of the Danube waterway in the Danube ports is reflected in the 25% share of all Solidarity Lanes freight flows and comes quite closer to the 28 million tons of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. So a lot has been achieved, but a lot still has to be done. Further investment in the ports and in the hinterland connection is needed, as well as in the border crossing points, and we also still have to increase the traffic capacity on the Sulina Canal. We think that this investment is a good investment, is a good decision, because we believe that the Danube waterway and its ports will continue to play an important role in the phase of reconstruction of Ukraine. As Ukraine and Moldova are now EU accession candidates, the expansion of EU transport corridors will certainly have to include the solidarity lanes and thus the Danube and its ports. The border area of Ukraine, Moldova and Romania has not only a huge potential for agricultural goods and is an important logistic hub, but also offers high economic potentials for renewable energy production. This is already reflected in Ukraine's hydrogen strategy, for example. Therefore, the Danube and the Danube ports are indispensable elements now and in the future of a prospering Ukraine, a great opportunity for sustainable transport in the region, and they can offer via short-sea shipping services important trade connections to the Black Sea countries of highest geopolitical importance, such as Turkey and Georgia. The Danube Commission will therefore continue to support the European Commission in its efforts for a secure and prosperous region, with the Danube as a core transport corridor and a gateway to the Black Sea. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I was signaled by the organizers that we need to complete earlier because of the different plans of the ministry. So I really thank you for your participation. I really thank you for everyone being here for this, I believe, just the beginning of the discussion about the future of our Black Sea region. And I hope to see all of you next year on the Black Sea coast in Ukraine. Thank you.
Asta e.
Doi 10, probă test.